Hello, nerds. Thank you for watching Generally Nerdy. This is your week in Nerdom for September 27th, 2019. This is the place that you get all of the nerdy news headlines, from music to movies and TV, gaming, comics, and everything in between. Oh, and we've got quite the show lined up today. There is a lot of stuff. Normally I can fit my notes onto 2 pages. Today is a 3-pager, so we're just gonna hit up that intro real quick. Hello, nerds. Thank you for watching Generally Nerdy. We're not even doing housekeeping, we're just jumping right into music news. And music news, we got a new song/video from Hellyeah, which the biggest reason why I keep tabs on this band is because I love Mudvayne so much. And Chad Gray is the vocalist for Mudvayne as well as for Hellyeah. This one, though, is a tribute. It's a ballad, if you will, that they wrote for Vinnie Paul, their once drummer, who passed away just a little while ago, and this is probably one of the better ones I've heard from them recently. You can find the link to the video down in the description. It's really heartfelt, kind of still not great though. I just have higher expectations for a project that is attached to somebody from a band like Mudvayne. It's just me. It's who I am. We're moving on. Next, we are talking about Metallica, and this one is really to open up a bigger, more meta kind of conversation about music and musicians specifically, because Lars Ulrich was talking to Pollstar, and he said that he thinks that Metallica still has around 2 decades, maybe even longer, left in their career, left in playing and making music and touring and doing all the things, so Lars is 56, I believe I read, and so that puts him into his mid-70s. And that's specifically what he said, is when he was asked, how long do you think this tour, speaking of the World Wired tour, how long do you think this tour is going to last? And his response was, until my early to mid-70s, probably. So that kind of is an interesting thing, because most bands, round about the age of Lars, kind of start to consider to throw in the towel. You've got Anthrax, who's been talking about it a little bit, though Scott Ian says he's not going to stop. You've got Slayer, who's a little bit older. Slayer's calling it quits. Ozzy, who is also a little bit older, but not... Well, I don't know. I guess Ozzy is into his 70s at this point, isn't he? But still, Ozzy's calling it quits. You have so many... Rush, who is not much older than Metallica. Rush is calling it quits. All of these big bands from right about that same period of time are starting to wind down. And Metallica said, we're just going to keep pressing. For as lukewarm as I have been on Metallica for some time now, I feel like that is a very much respectable way to view your music career. That should be the way it is, because, I mean, not for nothing, playing music for a living is not a very difficult job. Yes, there are elements of it that really suck. The tedium, touring is not something that most musicians really look forward to. I mean, really spending long hours on a bus cramped in with a bunch of stinky folk is not your idea of a great time, but it's also not incredibly physically demanding. Like, yeah, it's pretty physically demanding for somebody at, like, my level, who plays music and has to schlep their own gear to venues and has to do their own setup and their own sound and all of that. Yeah, that gets physically demanding, but the physical element of it kind of starts to go away when you're even 5 steps down from the level that Metallica is at. So he's at least recognizing that this is a good time, that we are entertainers and we enjoy what we do and we want to do it until we cannot physically or mentally, which is something that I'm paraphrasing from the interview, till we cannot physically or mentally continue. And I think that is the way it should be. You shouldn't just rest on your laurels. You should stay hungry. And again, as lukewarm as I've been on their music since you know the record. You know the record. I can't fault them for that attitude. I think that's awesome. But what do you think? Do you think bands should follow that the quote unquote traditional path where generally you're retired by your 60s? You've called it quits. You're living off your inheritance or your savings or whatever it is by your 60s, at the latest your 70s. I want to know what you guys have to say about that. So let's have that comment down, let's have that conversation down low. Comment. Listen to me. All right, next is another quickie thing about Dragonforce. I'm not even going to say what it is. You're just going to go click that link and have yourself a really good laugh. Just saying. So yeah, that's what we've got there. We're moving on real quick to Ice Nine Kills. Is a newer band. I've reviewed a show of theirs. You can check the link, or I think the links are over here. I get so confused. You can check the link, the card, if you will, that it will take you to that video. They opened up for Atreyu, and I got to do a write-up on the show. It was really awesome. And they just put out their last video for their current record, Silver Scream, which is based on the movie It, and it's called It Is the End, and I'm really of two minds about this. Like, I really appreciate that they turned all of the songs from this record into effectively what pans out to be a movie. A little bit of a horror movie, which is appropriate because the album is based on horror movies. So that seems really appropriate. But, like, maybe they should have found someone else to act in the lead role. I feel like there's a more artistic way to have done that if you're looking to make it feel more like a movie and less like a really campy musician trying to be in a movie. Like, but then sometimes, like, you kind of believe the character that their lead singer is playing. So I don't know. Well, it's a cool thing. Again, I really appreciate the concept, and I really like that what they've done with it. I just don't necessarily like the execution of it. It's each their own. All right, we're moving on. Next, we are talking about Gojira. Gojira has posted this picture onto their Instagram, which means they're finally freaking in the studio again. Thank you, good lord, that is awesome. I love Gojira, and I cannot wait for new music from them. Hopefully 2020, potentially more likely 2021, though it just depends on their recording process. I don't remember how long it took them last time they got into the studio to put out the record, so only time will tell, or an update from the studio might give us a better idea. But our last piece of music news has to do with the Dead South. We're veering away from the heavy stuff and into the bluegrass. Dead South put out a new song, rather. New record I don't believe is out yet. I couldn't find a release date, so yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not out yet though. New song is called Blue Trash, and it's pretty much what you expect out of a Dead South record, Dead South song. There is a little bit of a new-ish aspect to it. This is something that they have only recently started doing in their music, and they do it to a very great effect in this song. They have these really awesome tempo changes, and that's not really something you think about in bluegrass necessarily. And I mean, I'm not super into bluegrass. Like, I'm not in deep. I'm not all about the bluegrass. I do appreciate it because it takes a crazy amount of talent to play, but it's really, Dead South is more the talent and the attitude is what kind of attracted me to them, and this one's got definitely both of those in spades. So check the link in the description, go listen to that song, let me know what you think. And here we go on television news. TV news actually isn't very big. The big one this week is movie news, and there's a lot to get into movie news. So let's cover TV news, and then we can get there. First thing, we've got American Gods update. Blythe Danner has just been brought in for season 3. She's going to be playing the goddess Demeter. And I mean, that's just kind of awesome. Blythe Danner is kind of a huge name in acting, and she's going to be doing a comic book movie or show. But yeah, that's pretty freaking cool. Next, we have a couple of updates for Crisis on Infinite Earths. They just keep coming with this stuff, man, and we're just going to keep talking about it until it happens. So the first of which being Ashley Scott, who played Huntress in the Birds of Prey series back in the early aughts, I believe. That it only went for like 13 episodes, but she was the version of Huntress that is the daughter of Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne, if I'm remembering things correctly, which is kind of an alternate universe take on the character. But she will be coming back for Birds of Prey. She will be coming back for Crisis on Infinite Earths on the CW. Also, Osric Chou has been brought in for the event, and he's going to be playing Ryan Choi, that version of the Atom, which is kind of freaking cool. Though Osric Chou doesn't exactly have a superhero physique, I feel like you can get away with it with Ryan Choi's Atom. Actually, any iteration of the Atom doesn't necessarily have to be a huge, hulking muscle man. As kind of evidenced by his inclusion in the Injustice 2 game, he was one of the smaller, more diminutive characters, though he's one of the more fun ones to play. So that's pretty freaking cool. All I want to know about the Crisis on Infinite Earths is, where the heck is Dean Cain and Teri Hatcher? You know what I'm saying? Let's go. Our last piece in TV news has to do with the Arrow. As everybody knows at this point, Arrow is coming to a close. This is the final season for the show, and now they're going to be bringing it back, kind of. So it is going to be a different version of the Green Arrow that is actually technically Oliver's daughter in the comic books. How it's going to play out in the TV shows still remains to be seen. So the rumor is that this season is at least one episode in the season of Arrow is going to serve as a backdoor pilot for this new female Arrow. And so they have cast Kathrine McNamara to play Mia Smoak, who again is Oliver and Felicity's daughter in the future in the comic books. With the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing going on and the inclusion of the multiverse, it's kinda sorta more likely that she's going to be coming from an alternate universe in which it's kind of more futuristic than our universe, or we're just going to exist in multiple universes after Crisis on Infinite Earths happens. Your guess is as good as mine, but either of those kind of sounds really freaking intriguing. So that's what we've got for TV news. Now let's see if we can tackle this movie news bear, because it's a lot of stuff. First off, we have a really interesting trailer for a new horror movie, because it is getting to be that season. Wait a minute, it is already that season. The name of the horror movie is Devil's Junction: Handy Dandy's Revenge. The only reason we're talking about this is because it has Bill Moseley in it, and Moseley is a horror movie icon. If you watch the trailer, though, this looks like a very, what's a good way to put this? Very Bill Moseley kind of horror movie. Yeah. And other horror movie news, A Quiet Place 2 has officially wrapped on primary photography, according to John Krasinski, who should know because he's the director. That means we're really getting close to seeing this movie. I can't remember because I didn't put it in the notes, but I can't remember exactly when this is supposed to release. I do know it's next year. I just can't remember exactly when next year. So either way, it's done filming mostly, and so we're that much closer to actually seeing it. And next, we're talking about The Matrix 4. We talked previously about how there wasn't a script yet, but we started getting casting announcements. Well, now apparently there is a script. But no news as to whether or not it's been officially approved to go into filming just yet, but Keanu Reeves has seen this script and said that it is, quote, very ambitious, as it should be, unquote. Yes, Keanu, I think everyone agrees with you. If you're going to do a follow-up to the Matrix trilogy, you better have a lot of good reasons to do it, and those good reasons better be gigantic. Next, we're talking about Star Wars. This one, I feel like, I'm not breaking any news here, but Kevin Feige is now going to be producing a Star Wars movie. And rumors have been going nuts as to who he's going to put in this Star Wars movie. It sounds like he is going to be putting someone from the MCU at the center of his Star Wars movie. Though you can't necessarily call it his Star Wars movie yet, because the model that the MCU has created, where it's more of a series, more of a TV series in respect of each individual director of the movie, isn't as important as the overall production of the entire story, which is where Feige comes in. Feige, in a way, serves as more of a showrunner than an executive producer because of that take on how to make movies. That's not really the way they do things over at Lucasfilm, even though they are technically both Disney companies at this point. Lucasfilm kind of has a little bit more of each movie is something of a standalone, if not each trilogy is something of a standalone. Yes, they tie into one another, but that's not to say that they're more episodic content than they are movie content that just happens to be linked. So kind of a fine difference, a very, very fine line to walk there, but still a notable difference. Now, though, the rumors that have been going since the MCU has become this showrunner versus producer model, the rumors have been going that Feige is going to revamp the Star Wars universe with Kathleen Kennedy, and they're going to do something similar to Lucasfilm. From the press releases that I have seen, from the announcements and things that I have seen along these lines, that is not going to be the case, though there is likely going to be some changes in the top brass over at Lucasfilm. So that I'm interested to see what Feige's going to bring to it and how he's going to change the way they do business. I'm apprehensive as to whether or not it is going to be positive or negative. Next, we are talking about Clue. That's right, Clue. I feel like I've talked about this once before when it was originally announced last year. Ryan Reynolds, his production company, Maximum Effort, acquired the rights to make this movie. It's going to be not really a redo of the 1985 movie that is so freaking classic with Tim Curry as the butler, and the cast is just enormous. But it is going to be their own reimagining of how to interpret a board game into a movie. So that's not news. That's already been known. Again, that was announced about a year ago. Well, Reynolds and his Maximum Effort team have just brought on Jason Bateman to direct. I know Bateman's won some awards for his directing, but that's an interesting choice for Clue. Bateman will also apparently be making an appearance in the movie. What kind of appearance? If it's just going to be a quick cameo, or if he's going to be one of the players, as it were, still remains to be seen, as Ryan Reynolds is likely to be one of the bigger stars of the show. Perhaps he'll be the butler. Who knows? It's just an interesting little tidbit. So yeah, we're moving on. Next, we're talking about Todd Phillips and DC. Todd Phillips, as you may well know, is the director of the new Joker movie, which is about to launch, and there will be a review on Generally Nerdy, so definitely stay tuned for that. But Todd Phillips apparently has approached Warner Brothers and the DC side of things over at Warner Brothers in an attempt to start something akin to the Black Label DC imprint on the comic book side, only for movies, which is kind of what Joker is, and which I thought was already a thing. We've talked on the show in previous episodes about how DC was looking into creating such a thing. They're going to have their main universe, the DCEU, if you will, and then they're going to have this other branch that is a different production company that does just one-offs that are auteur movies, which is... It sounds great. It sounds awesome. Why isn't this already a thing? Todd Phillips apparently is the one that's kind of spearheading that movement. And so Warner Brothers, playing it safe, because they haven't had the best track record with comic book movies, is going to wait and see how Joker does. And from the sounds of it, Joker's going to do pretty well, so we very likely are going to be seeing a Warner Brothers Black Label, for lack of a better term. I'm excited. I want to see what happens. Next is a whole bunch of stuff about Ghost Rider. Part of this could have been included in TV, but since it's all Ghost Rider, it's all coming here. First, we got the announcement that Kevin Feige really wants to put Ghost Rider in the MCU. That was a thing that Feige said himself. Shortly thereafter, we got word that the Hulu Ghost Rider show will not be moving forward. They were going to be making a Ghost Rider series that has Gabriel Luna playing the lead role. His version of Ghost Rider was going to be Robbie Reyes. That very possibly was squashed because of Feige's statement. And then, after that announcement was made, there was a rumor that started, and some of the sources are pretty reputable, so it might have legs. The rumor is that Feige's Ghost Rider that he wants to bring into the MCU will not be Johnny Blaze, but rather Alejandra Jones' version of the character. And even more further down that rumor path, says that they're looking to bring Bella Thorne in as Alejandra Jones, which doesn't really make sense because Bella Thorne is crazy white. If you're gonna have a Hispanic character on screen, that's a good time to have a Hispanic character play a superhero, right? Or a Hispanic actor play a superhero. That just makes sense. Why would you bring in Bella Thorne? So I don't know about that version of the rumor. But then even further down this rabbit hole, we got word that it's likely that Feige is going to be introducing all of this craziness in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie that's going to introduce all kinds of alternate versions of characters, including, according to the rumor, a comic book accurate version of Nick Fury. So much rumor and a little bit of actual news. Tweet just kind of sprinkled in there. There's a very interesting little bit of stuff up ahead on the MCU horizon. So that sounds like fun. Speaking of the MCU, we're talking Sony right now, and don't get ahead of me. If you know the announcement from this morning, don't get ahead of me. First, we're talking about Madam Web. It was just announced that Sony is doing a Madam Web movie, not a series. This one is going to be written by Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless. So it's not going to be something that because we talked previously about how Lord and Miller are going to be doing TV projects. I honestly figured if Madam Web was touched as far as Sony goes, that it was going to be Lord and Miller who turned her into a series somehow, or introduced her in a Spider-Man series of some sort. That's not the case. This is going to be done as a movie, not a series, and that's just, it's a lot of stuff. Switching back over to MCU proper for one more piece, and then we'll get to the big one from this morning. Back over to MCU proper, we're talking about Captain Marvel 2, and there are a couple more rumors associated here. First of which being Nova is going to be introduced in the next Captain Marvel movie. With the other announcement we got this morning, this one I feel like has a little bit less of a leg to stand on, though we'll talk about that. But anyway, so Nova is potentially going to be introduced in the next Captain Marvel movie. Also, the rumor is that the big bad for that movie will be Varanki. Varanki is how I read it when I read the comics. the Skrull Queen. So maybe they will be doing some Secret Wars, or Secret Invasion rather. Maybe we will see Secret Invasion in the MCU after all, if the big bad turns out to be the Skrull Queen in Captain Marvel 2. That has a lot of very awesome potential as well. So our final piece just was announced this morning. Spider-Man's coming back. the Disney Sony deal, they have found some common ground. The specifics of the new deal have not been made public, but at the very least, they do include one more movie in the MCU, so they are going to finish the Homecoming trilogy, if you will. The Spider-Man Homecoming 3 movies are going to going to happen all under the MCU branch in some way, shape, or form. So again, how exactly they worked those details out, we don't know yet. As those details come out, I will definitely let you know. But so this again ties into the Nova thing. So the rumor before this whole thing dissolved, actually as the whole thing dissolved a month ago, was that the next Captain Marvel movie was going to use Spider-Man as a crutch. And I say that very deliberately, was going to use Spider-Man as a crutch to prop up Captain Marvel. She was going to be the focus. She was going to be the new center of the MCU and was going to use Spider-Man as a running gag of sorts. Well, I would imagine Sony wasn't super happy with that, so that was at least a part of the disillusion of their contract, of their deal, of why they didn't re-up the deal. So the introduction of Nova into the new Captain Marvel movie very potentially is going to switch that emphasis over to Nova and away from Spider-Man, which I'm both happy with and also kind of upset with, because in the books, Nova is a much more powerful character than Captain Marvel, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but only time will tell, because a lot of this is rumor. But we will be seeing Spider-Man in the MCU at least one more time. Now we are winding down the episode with our last 2 sections. Each section has 3 pieces, so this will be relatively quick comparatively to what we just went through. First, we're talking about gaming, and we've got Mario Kart Tour in the news because it is huge. It's enormous. It is the largest Nintendo game release, mobile game release, I should say, ever. It's more than 20 million players in less than 24 hours. So almost 10 million almost a million players every hour that the game has been released. That's pretty freaking nuts, and just needed to put that in here because that's pretty freaking nuts. Next, we got our combat cast for the newest update, the newest patch, which will hopefully be going live sometime soon in Mortal Kombat 11. The patch notes have not been released yet because the patch has not been released yet, but the combat cast did go over a lot of the things we're going to be seeing in this new patch, and 2 of those things are things that have been kind of being asked for really since before the game came out, since the last 2 games actually. The first of which is the one that people have been asking for since MK9, actually potentially even longer than that, is a new game mode. So in the quote-unquote 3D era of gaming for Mortal Kombat, there were mini games, and people have been asking for the mini games to be brought back. Those mini games were, we had a kart racer, we had a kinda sorta chess game, we had a puzzle game, which is my favorite of the list. So actually the puzzle game seems to be one of the more popular ones with the fans. So a lot of people have actually been asking, are we going to get Puzzle Fighter? Are we going to get Puzzle Fighter? Are we going to get, or Puzzle Combat, I guess. Puzzle Fighter is the Street Fighter version of it. But are we going to get Puzzle Combat? Are we going to get Puzzle Combat? Are we going to get a standalone release of Puzzle Combat? Maybe a mobile release of Puzzle Combat? There's never been a response to that, but now we're getting something. It's not one of the pre-existing minigames. This is more a new game mode, so it takes existing mechanics. It doesn't create new mechanics for it. It takes existing mechanics and kind of adds to those. So it's what do they call it? It's a team battle. The word escaped me. I didn't put in the notes because I'll remember. So it's a team battle where you're going against a boss. Now those kind of sort of already exist. Only it's one person at a time. So it changes the difficulty. This way, you're going all 3 people on the team at one time. Though you're not all 3 on the screen at the same time, there are indicators so that everyone, because it's going to be kind of a variation on the Dragon Challenge. It's more of a marrying of Dragon Challenges and boss battles. So the Dragon Challenge has a little thing across the screen that says, you should throw 4 low punches. And so you throw 4 low punches and you get 1,000 coins. Well, in this mode, you throw 4 low punches and then the other 2 teammates throw 4 low punches and you unlock something, which I think is kind of awesome. But it also, it makes for a very difficult time because apparently these new boss battles are going to be ramped up as far as the difficulty goes. So 6 one way, half a dozen the next. We'll see how much fun. It sounds like it's going to be an incredible amount of fun playing this, but you can get more if you watch the Combat Cast. Go check out Mortal Kombat's YouTube page or their Twitch channel for that. Our last piece of news has to do with Apex Legends, another game we talk about very regularly on the show. Apex Legends, thank you data miners, you guys rock. Some data miners have found that Apex Legends is potentially going for crossplay in the not too distant future between all 3 of the major systems. So PC, Xbox, and PlayStation look like the 3 of them are going to be cross-play compatible in the future. It's not set in stone. It just looks like there's some code that they're starting to implement with the updates that is kind of leading people to believe this is the direction they're headed, which is freaking awesome. I feel like any game like this, any game where you battle online at all, should be crossplay. If it's the same game from console to console, why can we not go from console to console? This just doesn't make sense. So I'm excited about that, and we're moving on to our last section, which is comic books. As always, comic books. We got Chris Claremont, who we talked about a couple episodes ago, who's coming back for the issue 1000. He wrote a small story for that over on Marvel. I should be specific. For Marvel's 80th birthday, I guess, issue. I think they're one and the same. Well, he's not just doing that. He is also now writing a New Mutants book. His artist is Bill Sienkiewicz, and I mean, any more Chris Claremont we can get, the better. So let's have at it. I really am digging this direction that Marvel is going, just giving fan service and also creating brand new quality content is obviously the best thing you can do to keep your fans happy, right? Next, we're talking about the newest book from Tales of the Dark Multiverse over on DC. This one is The Death of Superman. So just real quick recap, Tales from the Dark Multiverse is a darker take on big events that have happened in the DC universe. This one is obviously The Death of Superman. In this, Lois Lane becomes the Eradicator after the death of Superman, and it sounds like just goes a little bonkers and takes everyone out, according to the synopsis. So all of these one-off books are definitely going to be worth a read, and this one is not an exception to that. Our last piece is actually kind of a follow-up rather on a section on a topic, or on a piece rather, from a section that we don't cover very regularly, is books, like literature, like hard pictureless text on page kind of books. I do keep up on some of the nerdy news in that arena. I am not as well versed there as I would like to be, though I am going to be doing a book review here soon for a local author and then interviewing the author as soon as my copy comes in the mail. But so that's irrelevant. What we talked about was about a year ago, there was a young adult fiction novel released called Batman Night Stalker. And it's not really Batman because it's Bruce Wayne as a mid to late teenager. So about 18 years old. It's long before he becomes Batman. And it's kind of like a supernatural story, if I remember correctly. Well, this is comic books and not books, and that happened a year ago, but now they are releasing a full and proper graphic novel, which, alright, so let me clarify something real quick for people who are like, oh, graphic novel, that's just you being pretentious. No, there is a difference between a graphic novel and a trade, paperback, or hardcover. So a graphic novel is a self-contained unit. The story is all put together, all in probably in chapters usually, but all in one. You did not get those chapters as individual issues that have been released over the span of months or weeks or years or whatever. A graphic novel comes out all at once and is contained in one package. A trade is the collection of issues that tell a singular story arc on an ongoing story. So hardcover, softcover, doesn't matter. Hardcover, paperback, whatever. Doesn't matter. It is still the same thing. You are still collecting issues that tell a cohesive story arc, not necessarily a fully contained story. So therein lies the difference. We are getting a graphic novel about Batman Night Stalker, which is kind of cool. That is the end of the show. What did I miss? What should we talk about in the next one? Let me know in the comments down below. If, though, you want to go deeper into the conversation, jump over to the website, generallynerdy.net. That is the place to get all of the stuff for free, or patreon.com/generallynerdy if you want to support the channel. There's more stuff up there. Thank you guys again for watching. If you're falling behind on your nerd news and you want to catch up, you can click or tap one of those boxes to the left of my face to do that. But before we go, always remember, guys, that if it's generally nerdy, it is probably here.